Success isn't a matter of chance. It's the result of consistent habits and a winning mindset. Success is built. It is shaped through habits, through mindset, through the standards you repeat so often they become your identity. Some people seem to attract success almost effortlessly, but if you look closer, what appears effortless is usually the product of years of disciplined thinking and intentional action. They are not magically different. They simply built routines, thoughts, and behaviors that align with where they want to go. The people who keep growing tend to share the same pattern. They value growth, they act with discipline, and they remain committed when the excitement fades. Those who stay stuck usually fall into different patterns: procrastination, inconsistency, self-doubt, and endless hesitation. The difference is rarely talent. It is rarely intelligence. It is almost always the small daily choices that compound until they become a life. If you want to attract success, the first thing you must change is not your circumstances, but your way of thinking. Shift your mindset, strengthen your habits, surround yourself with energy that elevates you. Then, take one intentional step forward every single day. Success is not something you chase forever. It is something you become. And once your habits begin to match your vision, success starts to feel less like a miracle and more like a natural consequence. Every day, whether you realize it or not, you are becoming someone. Your habits are shaping that person. Your choices are shaping that person. Your thoughts are shaping that person. Your life is a canvas, and every decision is a brushstroke. The question is whether you are painting deliberately or letting the world paint over you. Success is not just a stack of external achievements. It is the visible expression of who you are internally. Your posture, your self-talk, your discipline, your standards, your energy. These things decide what you attract and what you tolerate. The world responds to identity. If you want to attract strength, you must build strength. If you want to attract respect, you must become respectable. If you want to attract success, you must first become someone who can carry it. You've met people like this before. They don't need to speak the loudest. They don't chase attention, but they walk into a room and something shifts. There is clarity in them, purpose in them, quiet confidence in them. That presence is not an accident. It is the result of internal work most people never see. It is built in the private hours, in the repeated refusal of mediocrity, in the decision to become someone solid. Their lives begin to change because they changed first. Success starts moving toward them because they built a character that can hold it. Think about Edwin C. Barnes. He had no wealth, no powerful contacts, no special credentials, and no obvious reason to believe he belonged beside Thomas Edison, but he did believe it. Before anyone else saw it, Barnes had already decided who he was. He did not wait for the perfect opportunity to show up dressed in certainty. He created his own opening by moving before the evidence existed. He traveled with almost nothing except his conviction, and when he finally stood in front of Edison, he did not present himself as a man looking for a small chance. He presented himself as a future partner. At that moment, he was not yet the man he claimed to be in the eyes of the world, but in his own mind, the identity had already been chosen. He accepted a small opportunity, kept showing up, kept proving himself, and when the right opening appeared, he was ready for it. That opportunity changed his life. The lesson is simple. Success often begins when your identity moves ahead of your current results. The same principle shows up in Henry Ford. Before he became a symbol of industrial success, he experienced failure more than once. He watched companies collapse before he built the one that would transform an entire industry. But Ford did not let temporary outcomes define his identity. He held on to a vision larger than his setbacks. While the world saw automobiles as luxury objects for the wealthy, he saw something else entirely, a future where innovation could be scaled, simplified, and made accessible. His resilience was not based on the absence of failure. It was built on his refusal to let failure decide who he was. That is the kind of internal structure success requires. Not perfection, not ease, conviction. So the question is not simply what you want. The deeper question is who you need to become in order to hold what you want. If you want wealth, you must start thinking like a builder, not a consumer. If you want influence, you must develop the communication, discipline, and presence of a leader. If you want freedom, you must become someone capable of handling responsibility. Success stops feeling distant the moment your identity starts aligning with your vision. Most people exhaust themselves chasing results while still thinking like the person they are trying to outgrow. That is why they stay tired. They pursue success from the outside, but they never become success from the inside. The moment that changes, the game changes. You stop operating from wishful thinking and start operating from certainty. You become more deliberate, more focused, more magnetic. Not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because you stop moving like someone who needs permission. This is why success often seems to find certain people. It is not random, it is identity at work. Your beliefs shape your choices shape your patterns, and your patterns shape your future. When your identity matches the life you say you want, your actions become more consistent, your standards rise, and your presence starts to communicate something powerful. This person is serious. That is when opportunities begin to respond differently. Success is less about chasing and more about alignment. Less about grabbing and more about becoming. The life you want is not only built through strategy, it is built through identity. But identity alone is not enough. Success also demands clarity. If you do not define what you want, life will define it for you, and usually not in your favor. Most people move through life reacting instead of designing. They drift instead of deciding. They hope instead of planning. But success is never built on vague wishes. It is built through clear goals and deliberate action. A general desire to be successful has no power unless you can define what success actually means in your world. Does it mean financial freedom, mastery of a craft, influence, a business, a life of peace and ownership? You must be specific. Clarity sharpens action. Vague goals create vague effort. Clear goals create focused movement. Once you know what you want, you can begin breaking it down into measurable steps. What needs to happen this year? What needs to happen this quarter? What needs to happen in the next 30 days? Structure is not the enemy of freedom. It is often the bridge to it. Dreams become real when they are translated into targets, timelines, and behaviors. And your goals should do two things at once. They should intimidate you just enough to stretch you and excite you enough to keep you engaged. If a goal demands nothing from you, it will change nothing in you. The people who leave a mark on the world rarely stumble into success. They move with intention. Thomas Edison did not build a legacy by hoping one good idea would save him. He kept testing, refining, correcting, and moving. Henry Ford did not transform an industry by getting lucky once. He improved systems relentlessly. Great achievement is almost always the result of repeated, structured effort. Success loves structure because structure creates consistency, and consistency produces results. You do not climb a mountain in one dramatic leap. You do it one step at a time, and the steps only matter if they continue. That brings us to one of the most underestimated forces in success: resilience. Life will hit you. That is not a possibility. It is a guarantee. The issue is not whether you will fall. The issue is whether you have trained yourself to rise again. The difference between those who build extraordinary lives and those who quietly surrender is often nothing more than resilience. Not a dramatic talent, not superior intelligence, just the ability to absorb impact without losing direction. Setbacks are not detours from success. They are part of its construction. Every failure contains instruction. Every delay tests commitment. Every disappointment reveals what still needs to be strengthened inside you. History has no shortage of examples. Abraham Lincoln faced repeated defeat and deep personal loss before becoming one of the most respected leaders in American history. What made him remarkable was not a life free from hardship, but a life that refused to stay defined by hardship. This is what resilient people understand. Failure is temporary, but quitting can become permanent. They do not ask only, "Why is this happening?" They ask, "What is this teaching?" That question changes everything. It turns pain into data. It turns struggle into preparation. It gives you something to do besides collapse. Resilience is also built through a willingness to stay uncomfortable. Growth rarely feels elegant while it is happening. It feels uncertain. It feels inconvenient. It feels like pressure. But if you can remain present in the discomfort without running from it, you begin to develop a kind of inner durability that most people never access. The people who go far are not always the most gifted. They are often the ones who developed the capacity to keep moving when movement became difficult. That ability is priceless. And beneath resilience, there is another force that often decides everything before the results arrive: self-belief. Before the world trusts you, promotes you, buys from you, supports you, or recognizes you, you usually have to believe in yourself without external confirmation. Self-belief is the foundation of every serious accomplishment. The greatest limitations in life are often internal before they are external. Fear, doubt, hesitation, negative self-talk, these are the real enemies. Most people do not lose because they were incapable. They lose because they accepted a smaller identity than they were built for. Self-doubt often feels intelligent, but most of the time it is just fear wearing the costume of realism. It is a conditioned response built from past failures, criticism, and uncertainty. The good news is that belief can be trained. It grows the same way strength grows, through repetition and proof. Every time you act in spite of fear, every time you keep a promise to yourself, every time you survive something difficult and continue, you are teaching your mind that you are capable. That is how self-belief is built, not by waiting to feel ready, but by acting before you do. Walt Disney was once dismissed as lacking creativity. Henry Ford was ridiculed for his vision. The Wright brothers were mocked for trying to do what many believed was impossible. But the world eventually had to adjust to people who believed before the evidence existed. Confidence is not handed to you, it is built. And once it is built deeply enough, your behavior changes. You begin to speak with more certainty. You make decisions faster. You tolerate less confusion. You stop asking the room for permission. And the room can feel it. People respond to certainty because certainty carries energy. Still, self-belief alone is not enough if it never gets translated into discipline. Discipline is one of the clearest dividing lines between those who talk and those who build. Not talent, not intelligence, discipline. The ability to do what needs to be done even when you do not feel like doing it. Most people are waiting for motivation, but motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls with mood, energy, sleep, weather, praise, stress, and emotion. Discipline is different. Discipline shows up whether the conditions are ideal or not. That is why it creates results motivation cannot sustain. Look at anyone exceptional in any field. Athletes train on days they don't feel inspired. Entrepreneurs keep building when nobody is watching. Writers keep writing when the words feel slow. They do not win because they are constantly motivated. They win because they have trained themselves to act beyond their emotions. Discipline is the bridge between goals and results. It takes what you say you want and turns it into something visible. A brilliant plan with no discipline is just entertainment. A strong vision with no discipline is just fantasy. The good news is that discipline can be trained like a muscle. It doesn't require a dramatic transformation overnight. It starts with simple proof. Waking up on time, doing what you said you would do, keeping your schedule, honoring your commitments even when no one checks on you. Small acts of discipline compound. They build momentum, and momentum becomes identity. Over time, disciplined people stop seeing consistency as effort. It becomes standard. None of this exists in a vacuum. Your growth is deeply affected by what you continue learning and by the people around you. The world changes too quickly for comfort to remain a strategy. The people who thrive are not the ones who resist change. They are the ones who keep learning, adapting, and evolving. Knowledge matters, but only applied knowledge changes lives. Reading alone won't save you. Listening alone won't transform you. Information without execution becomes clutter. The people who keep rising are the ones who take what they learn and turn it into behavior. Your mind is like a blade. If you don't sharpen it, it dulls. Successful people understand that personal development is not a one-time event. It is a lifestyle. They remain students. They stay open to new ideas. They update their skills. They refine their thinking. They know that the moment they become rigid and overconfident, they begin to fall behind. Growth is not passive. It requires participation. What you study matters. What you apply matters even more. And then there is your circle. The people around you are either reinforcing your growth or normalizing your stagnation. Success is not just about what you do. It is also about what your environment makes easy, acceptable, and expected. If your circle celebrates excuses, average becomes comfortable. If your circle respects effort, ambition becomes natural. Energy is contagious. Standards are contagious. Perspective is contagious. That is why intentional people are careful about who gets access to their time and mind. The people closest to you influence the conversations you have, the expectations you normalize, and the level you believe is possible. Successful people protect their environment. They pursue relationships that challenge them, stretch them, inspire them, and sharpen them. They seek mentors. They stay near people who live with purpose. They distance themselves from chronic negativity, not out of arrogance, but out of strategy. Your time and energy are too valuable to be spent in environments that train you to settle. Perspective matters just as much. A scarcity mindset sees life as limited, competitive, and threatening. It says there is not enough. It says someone else's win is your loss. It trains you to hesitate, envy, and protect instead of build. An abundance mindset sees something different. It recognizes that opportunity expands, that other people's success can become evidence instead of intimidation, that setbacks can teach instead of define. The difference between these two mindsets is not just emotional, it is practical. Your perspective shapes your behavior, and behavior creates outcomes. If you focus only on obstacles, you will keep finding reasons to stop. If you train yourself to focus on solutions, you will begin noticing options that were invisible before. The brain reinforces what you repeatedly emphasize. Tell yourself you are limited, and your actions will reflect it. Train yourself to believe that growth, opportunity, and expansion are possible, and your behavior begins to align with that belief. One mindset contracts your life, the other expands it. Passion helps, but passion by itself is not enough. Passion is fuel. Purpose is direction. The people who sustain success are usually driven by something deeper than money or applause. They have a reason. They are attached to a mission, a contribution, a meaningful direction. Passion gives energy, but purpose organizes it. Without purpose, passion can scatter. With purpose, passion becomes force. When what excites you begins to align with what matters deeply to you, your work changes. Hard work becomes more bearable. Sacrifice becomes more meaningful. Persistence becomes more sustainable. Still, even purpose requires action. Dreams without action remain decoration. You can have the best mindset, the clearest goals, the strongest beliefs, the most supportive circle, and still stay exactly where you are if you do not move. The final bridge between dreams and reality is action. Not occasional action, consistent, imperfect, relentless action. Too many people wait for clarity, the right moment, the perfect conditions, some invisible signal that confirms it is time. But the people who achieve meaningful success usually start before they feel completely ready. They move before certainty arrives. They make mistakes, correct course, and keep going. That is the difference. They do, while others think, hesitate, delay, and rehearse. Success belongs to people who act. Everything you want becomes more possible the moment you stop treating action like a future event. The right time is almost never later. It is now. Not because everything is ideal, but because waiting trains passivity, and action trains power. So if you want to attract success, become the kind of person success is naturally drawn to. Strengthen your mindset, clarify your goals, build resilience, practice self-belief, train discipline, keep learning, protect your circle, shift into abundance, align passion with purpose, and above all, act. The life you want is not waiting somewhere to be discovered. It is waiting to be built by the person you decide to become. The question is not whether success is possible for you. The question is whether you are willing to build yourself into someone who can hold it. Start today. Not dramatically, not perfectly, but intentionally. And keep going until your daily choices become the life you once only imagined.